welcome to everyone who's already joined us and will be joining us in the future. This is a bit of a group discussion. I get everyone to introduce themselves in a moment about IDs using YouTube and the different YouTube channels we've created. So I guess start with some quick hellos to everyone who is already joining us. I can see we've got multiple Cheryls. That's going to be interesting and fun. Thanks for both showing up, just to make the day more challenging. And I can see we've got Damien as well. Thanks for joining. I would say, guys, we want this to be like a really open discussion. We've certainly not come into this with a script. So if we look terrified at any point, you know why. But do throw questions out either in the chat or in the Ask a Question section. We'll answer as many as we can. And we will attempt to be honest. These two probably will. I will not. And you'll see if you can spot the ones that aren't. So I thought a really interesting place to be to start the session with why each of us are using YouTube. And maybe intro ourselves and our channels at the same time. So Vanessa, do you want to kick us off on that front?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa Alzate. I am the owner of Anchored Training. And so my YouTube channel is Vanessa Anchored. And I just wanted to make sure that I tied both my business and myself. And I started my channel, I think it was right after the pandemic. Well, right after our lockdown, I should say. And it was something that I had been thinking about doing a lot of. And I do vision boards at the end of every year that kind of help guide me through the year. And that was one of the things that was on there. I was terrified of putting myself on camera, which is partly why I was never really on LinkedIn that often or really putting my thoughts out there. And then I just decided in 2019, I was like, you know what? I just want to live out loud and just share my thoughts, good, bad, and different. I'll learn something. Maybe someone else will learn something from me. I always watched a lot of YouTube. I go down YouTube rabbit holes a lot of the time while I'm getting ready in the morning, while I'm working out. I made my husband put a TV right in front of me so I could watch YouTube. And I just always gravitated towards the ability to have authentic conversation with a camera and share my thoughts with others, and hopefully they'll take something away from it. So I do a lot of instructional design topics, but also putting in some of that business and kind of that freelance to CEO type content, because those are all things that we all need to be thinking about, that it's all important, especially when you are doing freelancing. So that was me.
Awesome. And that's quite a range of content. How's it been received so far?
So far, pretty good. The hardest part for me is honestly planning my content calendar, because there are so many things that I want to do. So when I decided I was going to do YouTube, I just took out a notebook and I wrote down every single topic that came to mind. And it was really every single question that I had, that someone else had. So I try to do themes. So typically one day, a month, there'll be something on some sort of tool that an instructional designer will use. Another day, it would be something about like actual theory or how we're going to apply, the learning and things like that. So I've done topics on ADDIE. I just did one for Agile. And then one day a month, I'll do something that is a little bit more business focused, which for me is a little bit more fun because it's an area that I have not gotten to talk a ton about since I really became the CEO of Anchored Training, even though I believe that you are a CEO of yourself, even when you're freelancing, not under an official name. But that was just started in 2018. So I'm learning so much about it that I just want to talk to other people because I want to hear from them too, of their experiences. So it's a little bit, kind of feels all over the place, but it all is kind of threaded together because they're all skills that you have to take with you in order to progress in the industry.
Cool. So I have a question I'm going to selfishly ask.
Sure.
How do you juggle running your own business and then still sticking to a content calendar? Because I find myself...
I don't. No, I'm kidding. So I have a video editor, so I know that if I'm not doing at least one finding time to film one video a week, he has nothing to do. He's pretty amazing. We have such an amazing workflow that I know kind of when's like my last day to film before it has to go up on Wednesday. So I upload every single Wednesday morning. And so I started doing batching days where I actually batch my content. So I block out my calendar for that morning, typically, like until I know that my kids are going to be home and it's going to be super loud. And I will change my top in between, maybe change my hairstyle so it looks a little bit different. And then I'll film. I have done not middle of the night, but like 10 p.m. recordings. That's the nice thing about my softbox lights here. It made it look... So the video that I did, do you need a master's to be an instructional designer? That was at like 10 o'clock at night, right after I finished a meeting. And it looks like the middle of the day because of the lighting. It's not exactly the best time to do it, but I just try to squeeze it in whenever I can. And I have to block that time.
That's really interesting. I'm not sure about you, Joe. I really struggle with that. That's the... I have a lot of half-finished content that needs rounding up at some point. So I'm also going to need a continuity manager, I think, to go, well, you need to wear a blue shirt for the second half of this one. So, and Joe, what about yourself? What about your channel?
Yeah, so I'm Joe Suarez. I'm a now independent e-learning developer / learning experience designer. And my history with YouTube actually goes back like a decade now, but more on the back end. I was working at a company that recognized that they could really form a niche on YouTube by creating how-to videos to get people to come into their retail locations. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, they decided to pass that to HR, which went to training, which went to me. So on top of my full-time job, suddenly I overnight was running a YouTube channel. But that was good experience. By the end of it, I think I was managing like 150 or so how-to videos created by our store associates on different things and plugging different products and things like that. Mixed results, but all in all, good experience. And then it wasn't until in between, you can probably, if you really search hard, you can find them. I tried some how-to videos on different software tutorials at different times, never really stuck. But then a few months ago, I just decided to go all in and actually become a YouTuber and just start my own channel, which is e-learning out loud. And the goal of the channel originally was to do a combination of long form / half maybe explainer videos and a little bit of video blogging. I didn't really want to make it too much about myself. I wanted more explainer videos related to instructional design topics. So for example, similar to Tom, I have a video that's in the works that just keeps kind of being put on the back burner and taking different forms related to Adobe Flash, kind of a homage to Flash and what it was, why it was great, why it wasn't so great, and why it's no longer around, that kind of thing, and have fun with that. But more so, I've found success with more short form content in the form of just quick how-tos and tutorials and stuff. And that's kind of where I've found a good niche, mainly because I find those really quick and easy to turn around. I've gotten really good about, hey, what if I made a video about this? And then I can just create it and turn it around and have it uploaded in one evening.
I see that to me, the editing time on that blows my mind, because my background of getting into YouTube was I spent years editing other people's YouTube channels for them as a freelancer, and then went, I can do this, I'm going to do this myself, and then went, oh, hold on, there's a whole other world to this. Now I'm editing myself. I can't stand to open Premiere anymore. I just look at it and go, no, not today. I don't need an interactive mirror before me. So that's, is anyone else struggling with that, editing themselves?
Well,
that's why I don't.
Podcasting for 3 years, really, that initial shock of, oh my gosh, do I really sound like that? And trying to take out every pause and getting comfortable talking on while something is recording me. I think I got over a lot of that for podcasting, and doing various things like being on TLDC occasionally helped me get over being on camera. So I'm not too turned off by having to edit myself anymore.
That's what
But
hopefully one
I
day.
know. Can you teach me how to be like that? That's why I don't do it.
So that's interesting. So you outsource all your editing then?
Yeah, so I have a video editor that does my YouTube, and then he actually takes the audio file from it and he turns that into my podcast. And then for any interviews, so I'm starting to do some special content on my podcast. And for that, any interviews and stuff that I do on there, I just send them to him, and he edits it and uploads it. There is just so many projects at one time, so many things, and then in the middle of buying and selling, and I have my 2 young kids that I would love to make a 25th hour in the day, but there's just not that time. And so I knew that if I left the editing to myself, it would never get done. And so I hooked up with Russell at Love Travel Film, and he's been amazing. Always my cheerleader. Tells me, don't worry about, this, that, and the other. Just be yourself, because I will let perfectionism get in my way a lot of the time. And so he also has been infusing, like, we met and he got a sense of my style and what I like. Like, he knows I love the 90s. So he brought me a little gift that I have behind me for the 90s. And he knows that I love being sarcastic and funny. So some of those little annotations and things like that, he puts them in, but they're all things that I would have said, felt, a meme that I would find. And so we have a really good relationship. So I think that's super important. He was able to find my voice, and we work super well together.
Yeah, I think from having edited other people's stuff, having that connection is so important.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he probably has some level of connection to what you're doing or enjoys your content. Because I'm sure we've all, as instructional designers, had to edit content that we've watched and gone, I do not want to watch this, let alone watch it 60 times to edit it, let alone inflict it on other people. So it's, yeah, if you are going to use an external editor, I think that's the biggest thing, is finding someone that you genuinely have that connection with.
Exactly.
So we've got quite a few questions haven't come in.
Yeah,
so I thought following on from that, I guess this is a good start, is how long does it usually take to produce a video? I feel like we're each going to have very, very different answers on this. Who wants to go first?
Well, I'd say, like all good answers, it depends. So it starts with, what kind of content are you creating? Is it more long form, short form? What's the purpose of the video? Who's your audience? What's the production value? That kind of thing. All those are variables and that will determine the length of a video.
I think, yeah, I definitely would agree with the recording of that too. I think for me, I start with my content calendar, and having those themed days helps me. So I know, like, okay, I have to fill this in for this month. And I actually have mine planned out until I think through May. I still have to write everything. I'm not that good. It's just I know what I'm going to be talking about. And so I go in and then I write a script based on it. It reads a lot like a blog, because I write as if I'm speaking. And that, to me, is how I can not have writer's block. And it doesn't mean that what I'm saying on camera is what I wrote necessarily, because I definitely go way off script sometimes. But I just think about, people have seen my outtakes, and, my husband saw them and he goes, who are you talking to? And I'm like, well, I'm talking to Russell. Like, that's what I'm talking to whoever. Like, my camera is a person, and that's how I'm able to, be able to have that conversation and speak as if I'm talking to someone, because I'm genuinely thinking that I'm talking to someone. It also makes me feel less crazy in my house, because it's like I'm talking to someone, not just myself. So all in all, it takes me a few hours to do all of that. Once I have everything written, it'll take me, it could be 20 minutes. to record a video. So I could have 3 or 4 done in an hour. Sometimes it takes me 45 minutes to do a video. So that really truly depends. And I know on Russell's side, because he's done so many YouTube channels and things like that, it takes him about, I think he said it was like 2 to 3 hours for him to edit my videos.
Awesome. Yeah, I think my answer is kind of similar to Joe's in many ways. Really depends on the content. I think weirdly the longer form content actually tends to be quicker. I find shorter form content actually takes a lot longer because I'm never quite happy with it. There's always how do you cram a lot into a 6-minute video without literally running a marathon with words inside 6 minutes? So yeah, I think certainly the longer form content, like I did like an installation guide for installing the Adapt framework on Windows 10 because I couldn't find a good video about it, and that was like the quickest bit of production of any video, and it's not very well produced at all, but it does the job really. Whereas like I would say that it's the I did like a 5-minute react to Microsoft Viva coming out. That took longer than like a half-hour tutorial to actually get out the door, which probably isn't good really, but that's the answer to the question. Pardon me. Next question then. Sorry,
real quick to add on. So no matter what you're doing, there's basically 3 big steps of the whole thing. There's pre-production, where you're planning, and like Vanessa was saying, maybe writing a script and things. If you're interviewing somebody or some other aspects, you're coordinating all that. Then there's the actual production, the part where you hit record and 2 times, start and stop. And then there's the post-production where you're editing everything, and the part I always forget where I need to upload to YouTube and create a thumbnail and write the description, and there's all these extra steps I always forget. But there's basically those 3 parts, and with all those variables on what goes into it will vary on how long each of those 3 steps is going to take.
So actually, a question from me: how do you guys get on with the actual YouTube platform? Do you like it?
Do you mean on like the back end or?
Yeah, on the back end. Yeah, I think their front end, in fairness, is pretty. I mean, when you're sharing videos, there's only so much you can do, really. But yeah, as a channel owner in the background, what do you think of the site?
There are definitely updates that I think would be nice. For the most part, it's super intuitive. So what, like, I will jump in and just figure something out, probably do things way wrong and way hard for myself, but that's just how I am, which is kind of how I took to this. I think for the most part it is intuitive. There are some aspects of it that I would love to improve. Some things that are time consuming that I don't think really need to be. And then I think that for me, sometimes the most annoying is just the processing and the upload time, depending on how long it is. My videos, because I don't know how to be short and sweet like these 2 lovely gentlemen, I will talk for 15 to 20 minutes. And so it takes a little bit of a while for my videos to upload, especially depending on like the bandwidth. And with everyone working from home right now, my internet's been awful.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. Joe, yourself?
Yeah, I've always found it to be kind of surprisingly efficient in some ways. Like, you can upload multiple videos at once and do other things in the background while that's happening, and then after it's uploaded, it has to process, and it's pretty streamlined in that regard. But then at the same time, it's always a mystery as far as, okay, what should I actually be putting where and why? Like, how many keywords do I really need here? Or am I just spamming? And is there a point where I put so many keywords in that now YouTube's going to think I'm spamming? It's always a mystery, and there's tons of people out there that will try and demystify the YouTube algorithm and try and convince you of certain things. And that part is entirely way too complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always enjoy those videos when someone says, I've beat the algorithm. Oh yes, Google picked you. Of everyone on the planet, Google has imparted this knowledge only to you. Is that what you're saying? I wonder.
Mm-hmm.
for me, I quite like it from an upload video perspective. From a live video perspective, it's awful. Because once a month I do a live show on my channel, and it's the bane of my existence is getting that running each month. I click the button in OBS and I'm live on Twitch straight away. No problem at all. I get they're obviously primarily a streaming platform, but Google's got a bit of money to spend on YouTube, I think it's fair to say. So I think if I was going to pick one area that they could improve, it would be their live streaming side just needs to catch up with the likes of Twitch, really. What do you enjoy most, or what's your favorite thing about having a YouTube channel, other than telling people, hey, I'm a YouTuber? Which we know always makes you sound like a really cool person that people want to talk to. So what about you guys?
For me, I don't know if I'm there yet, but the whole point of it was eventually to kind of just establish myself as an expert, because I have, I've been applying for, I'm now independent, but I was going through a stretch of a couple of years where I was applying to a lot of jobs and my portfolio was resonating to one sense, but there's always this sense in the back of employers' minds where they're like, yeah, but did you really do all this stuff that's in your portfolio? Do you really know storyline? Like, how do we know we're not going to hire you and then you're going to come in here and you're just not going to know how to do all this stuff? So having something out there that says, I'm an established expert in this, that goes far and beyond getting some kind of certification or something, that's definitely a huge advantage, and part of the reason I have my channel up.
I have to agree with that. That's huge, especially for me. I wanted it to be an extension of Anchored training. So clients got to know us, they got to know me. And I wanted to really put a face to instructional design. It was a pretty faceless industry a lot of times. People are they don't put themselves out there on their websites. Like, you can kind of finally get to who they are on their contact us page or about us page. So I wanted to be able to put a little bit of a face to that and make it a little bit more accessible. I think so often people think this instructional design is this huge industry, and it is, and it's so hard to be part of it. Not so hard to be part of it. You just need to be disciplined and kind of be able to follow a path and make that path your own. And that's the nice thing. Every industry, every company needs training. They need instructional design in some way, shape, or form, so you can really make your role anywhere what you want it to be.
Well, that's a nice message to be putting out there. But I agree with you. I think a lot of, especially interestingly on the YouTube side of things, a lot of the instructional design channels are a little bit of a corporate spin-off. They're quite often attached to, this channel is trying to sell you the following tool set. It's it kind of defeats the object of like a peer sharing channel, really. Which I guess, let's move on to this one. What are the primary challenges with having a YouTube channel? Other than having to tell people, hey, I'm a YouTuber.
Right, I was going to say that
which
one.
cuts both ways.
I think we definitely hit a big one in around just getting the time and commitment to releasing regularly scheduled content. That's a huge challenge.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a huge challenge, and just making that commitment, having that time to say, you know what, this is good enough. I am good enough, because I was just watching something on YouTube yesterday, and they were saying how perfectionism is just another form of procrastination. And I was like, oh, that really hit me, like cut me deep. I felt seen, but also really cut me deep at the same time. It's true. Perfectionism just equals procrastination. So you are good enough, and I would just try it. The worst that could happen is you take it down. Yeah,
that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I like that. That's I think the biggest challenge for me so far is being a little overambitious with some of the video concepts. I've now had a video tied up for 3.5 weeks because I'm waiting for something in the post. This was a bad idea for a video concept at that point. or at least maybe should have been further down the production line. I think that's one of those challenges, is if you are going to do content where you need stuff, it's going to cost you money, and being willing to invest that, and finding the right balance there where I can, keep my eBay account without my wife stealing the password and shutting it down. So just following on from that then, what are the most popular YouTube videos that we've each got out at the moment?
So my portfolio, 5 steps to create a portfolio, is definitely huge. I also know that someone took that video and put it as part of like some course. So I think that helps to drive traffic. And then I was just saying to y'all earlier, my Adobe Captivate review, which wasn't hugely favorable. Adobe Captivate is pretty huge. It's actually got just about the same amount of likes or views as the other, the portfolio video. So that was surprising. I have no idea how that happened, but it's a good problem.
Cool. What about you, Joe?
So I really didn't intend this to be my most popular video, but the one long form video I have up is basically it's like my 2020 reflection video, where I talk about my awkward journey to finally becoming an independent freelancer. And it all stemmed from the final job I left. I was shipping back the laptop to them, and I realized that this was the 4th laptop I had returned in 12 months. And rather than just let that be a big downer, I just turned it into a video where and just tried a lot of different things. Like obviously right now I just have I'm in my office with a camera in front of me, but just try a lot of different vlogging, like video camera techniques and different things. And I thought it came together really well, and it's resonated really well with some people. Way more personal than I intended to be on my channel, but I sat on it for like a month, and then finally I was like, I'll just, you know what, I got to release this.
That's cool. It's interesting because like the most popular video on my channel is the technical step-by-step walkthrough of installing Adapt. It's like by far the most popular video. Interestingly, someone did contact me because they are using it in a course material, actually. Vanessa, so you mentioned that. I hate it. Like, I would delete it if it wasn't as popular as it was. It's a terrible video. The instruction's fine, but it's just,
I feel the same about my e-learning portfolio video, so I'm right there with you.
It's interesting. It's like the videos that I really enjoy doing are like the live ones. Like we do the ID update once a month with Joseph Suarez, and those are great fun. And they get some views, but never like as many as the dull video that I would never myself watch. So that's not again. I'm not sure what that says really. Dull content. It's the future. So I think we're fair to say we all probably watch too much YouTube potentially. Not just us three, everyone. So what YouTube channels do you guys follow, or that you would recommend to others as well?
Yeah, so obviously these two lovely gentlemen's channels are amazing. But no, outside of just e-learning, so I do follow Aunt Pew is one of the first channels I followed. Bella Vista Studios also puts out content very regularly. It looks like they batch a lot of it and release it all at once. And they're really, a lot of them are pretty short, which is nice. And I also follow Chris Doe for a lot of that marketing and helping me with value-based pricing, which is going to forever be a struggle for me, and helping to beat that imposter syndrome around pricing, which is my biggest struggle.
So for me, I actually watch both of your YouTube channels as well, so I recommend those. But the ones that really inspire me are really complex and awesome explainer videos that like Vox does. And Vox hired a guy for a while that was creating these amazing videos. He was traveling abroad. His name is Johnny Harris, and they since let him go, but he's still making these videos, and I love his style, because he's doing that vlogger format, but he's not so self-focused like so many other vloggers are. He's really giving great content and explaining things, complex ideas in interesting ways, which that's the thing that really compels me to make long form content, is the idea that you can take something that no one would typically care about and convert it into something that somehow is really interesting and make that shift in like 5 to 10 minutes. So definitely Johnny Harris. And then to get all my camera and lighting set up, I followed videos from a channel that I'm pretty sure it's called DSLR Shooter. And it's just kind of how-to videos to get really good lighting and camera setup.
Awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of the same stuff on the same list, actually, for me. I can see Devlin Peck's joined the chat, so we better mention. Devlin's got a YouTube channel.
That's another channel.
He's like a proper, he can actually say, I'm a YouTuber. Like he's at that level of YouTuber now. So bad luck, as we've discussed, that's a double-edged sword. Yeah, for me, I follow a lot of tech YouTube channels. You've got the big ones like Linus Tech Tips, but also smaller ones like Craft Computing. Gamers Nexus is an interesting one if you've ever wondered how to make graphs and sort of testing data interesting. Again, quite long form, content rich stuff, but delivered in quite an interesting way. So it's quite nice to see. And Craft Computing, a really simple setup, something we can all kind of copy at home, which is nice. The guy is a full-time YouTuber now, but just runs it out of the spare room in his house, which I think is a nice message compared to, Linus Tech Tips creates amazing content, also employs like 50 people, spends millions of pounds a year on equipment and studio space and all this kind of thing. It's a little bit beyond the reach of us at the moment.
We're gonna get huge.
This time next year, millionaires, Rodney, which I've just realized may not be a joke.
Put it on the vision board.
Yeah, travels the ocean very well to you guys. Goals. Do you guys set goals for your channel or for your YouTube presence? Do you set yourself benchmarks, or I'll say now that I don't. I just kind of meander forwards on the basis of I've got a monthly show, and after that, hopefully, I'll put some videos out.
Yeah, same. I don't set benchmarks. I don't look at my content too much in that sense right now. I like being able to talk about things that I actually enjoy, because then I think you'll see the passion for me behind it. So I'm hoping I never get to a place where I'm like, oh, I can't, I shouldn't talk about that. That doesn't really do well on my channel. Like, if it doesn't do well, it doesn't do well. I'm not someone that's trying to make a ton of money on YouTube. It's really more to give me brand awareness, but also, one thing that we're doing is we're actually transcribing all of the videos, and then we'll turn them into, this is like this week's task, we're turning them into blogs that can then live on our website to help with SEO and for people that don't want to sit and watch a video. So that's what I really love about video too, is you can actually repurpose it in so many different places, because I know that content creation can be so difficult for everyone and just seem like such a huge task. You could take bits of it, put it on your Instagram, your LinkedIn. There's a lot of options when you can start extrapolating from your videos.
Definitely. I think that's interesting. On the transcripts point, is anyone using the inbuilt functionality on YouTube for transcripts and closed captions?
Right now we are, but I forget who we ended up going with, if it was Rev or I forget what the other company was, but one of those two is going to actually do the closed captionings from now on, as well as transcribe it like long form. And that's actually also very interesting statistics that you can see on the back end, is how many people have actually watched your video with closed captions turned on and or turned off.
Yeah.
So I only ask.
YouTube. I'm just letting YouTube do the automated closed captioning, and that's been working for me. Okay, I found it to be, of all the automated closed captioning things, I found it to be the most accurate, and the one I forget if it puts punctuation in, but if it does, then it puts it a step above the other ones. Because when I was working for a company, they used Microsoft Stream, and it would brag that it could do the same, and just the things it would output, it was just like one awful run-on sentence, and it's like, no, that's not accurate whatsoever.
Yeah, so I wonder how, because obviously the new version of the beta for Premiere has just come out, with all its automated transcription and closed captioning, and I've been kind of surprised about how good it is. Like, I'm kind of getting it to do a 20-minute video and having to, maybe add some commas in and correct some spelling, but actually it's pretty good. It'll identify the multiple people, it'll color code the closed captions, which is quite nice. So yeah, I wonder how, or I wonder if there'll be a shift, because I think the vast majority of people on the platform do use the inbuilt functionality. I know I do at the minute, because I haven't bothered doing anything special with it. But I think from a transcription point of view, especially given that it's free and included in Premiere Pro, if it gets good, or is good when it finally launches on the main thing, I think that could be a big thing, like you say, with SEO and blog posts. That's possibly something I hadn't thought about that. So what are your opinions, of YouTube as a learning platform?
I think it's going to become bigger and bigger. I know. It's really how so many, if you think about who's coming into the workforce now, like, what are they doing? They're sitting on YouTube. I mean, my kids are 4 and 3 and they love YouTube Kids. And it's the stupidest things that they're watching, like someone color coding little things. But I know that they're actually learning something, because then they'll say something to me and I remember it from a video that they were just watching. So I do definitely think that YouTube's only going to get bigger for learning, and just for those just-in-time opportunities, right? If you can do something that's 2 to 3 minutes so someone can get in, get out, get what they need, I think that's going to be huge in the next few years.
Okay.
I mean, I won't be doing that because I talk too much.
Try not to do that. This could be a huge soapbox where I just ramble on and on. So I'll try to keep it real short. But I really think that, before YouTube, before you could just post videos on the internet, I think, and this is coming from like more of a corporate internal perspective, if you wanted a video to explain something or show how to do something, you needed to go to the training team, and they probably needed to hire some outside production house, and they needed to set up this elaborate thing and shoot and get some like not so great actors because the budget wasn't that great, and they would shoot some cheesy videos, and then they would show them to people and people would roll their eyes. And that's kind of how training videos worked for the longest time. And then it was kind of, video was like democratized with YouTube, where it's like anyone can make videos about anything. And I think like around the late 2000s, early 2010s, I think people started to wake up and being like, well, wait a minute, why are teenagers with no instructional design background, nothing, they're not like even, they're just like mini subject matter experts. They're able to create these videos, whether it be software tutorials or makeup tutorials, or, there's like a guy can just record himself with his cell phone changing a car battery and upload it. And for some reason that is more effective in many cases than long form, super expensive stuff that maybe a training department might create. And I think that created a lot of anxiety in the L&D field, I'll say. And I think it's one of the reasons we hear terms like micro learning, because I think people scrambled to define what this thing was that people were able to do outside of our space and try and we'll say like, okay, we can do that too. So it created like this cottage industry of video, how-to videos, training videos, and things like that. So that's my rambling thing, and I forgot the question. I don't know if I answered
that's usually the best kind of answer, isn't it? Let's be honest. If you didn't believe us at the start that this session wasn't scripted, there you go. That's But no, I think that's exactly right. I think that, and I think that that hesitance remains. I know a lot of organizations, if I pitch to them video solutions, their immediate response is, well, why on earth would we pay you to make a video? We can do that. Yeah. And to which the response is obviously, yes, but it was my idea. So now if you do, I'll sue you. That's not, obviously. But I think there is still that hesitance around, if we do that, people might think anyone can do what we do. Isn't that kind of the point of learning, though, to tell people, look how easy this is. You can do this as well. Go forth and do. That's what results look like. So I think YouTube is an interesting player in that market. But similarly, I also don't think the corporate world will ever embrace actual YouTube. They will always want an internalized version of that, which, whilst there's the whole kind of, oh yes, but the social element and the freedom, practically speaking, no organization can trust that what you find on YouTube is true. None of us, let's face it, trust everything we hear off YouTube or the internet. So I think some internal version of, which is what, it's funny you mentioned Microsoft Stream. When I first saw that, I thought this will be it. This will be huge in the EdTech world. Unfortunately, of course, being a Microsoft product, it was awful, and they never really corrected the issues. But I know, right? Who would ever have thought Microsoft would just leave a product to gradually die on the shelf while making users use it? Only Google does that. But I think a lot of LMSs now and LXPs and whatever other three-letter acronym companies are using to sell their platform, they all seem to be focusing on, we support video, we support H5P, we support all these other platforms that are not SCORM and XAPI packages. And I think maybe that's the kind of crossover influence that we see from YouTube, as opposed to a direct companies embracing YouTube as it is. They want to kind of create their own version of it.
But I think there's lessons from YouTube that corporate organizations can take, because I can agree with you. I'm actually in the middle of piloting a product for one of my clients, and this person building this extension on your browser, they mentioned they were going to add a Slack channel. We work with so many pharma companies, and then when I brought this up to my client that they were adding this, she mentioned, well, I don't think that any of our clients would want that, because, you know, pharma, and they don't want someone saying the wrong thing and all that stuff. And while I can appreciate that, there is still bad information being trained verbally. So whether it is through a social platform, people are getting bad information in other ways via email. And there is an aspect of letting someone, instead of prescribing to them what their path is to learn something, give them the content and let them dive in. If they can figure out and use it correctly, how to, like, course or overviews and navigations of software. I do that all the time. People know what a search bar is at this point. Why are we explaining it to death? So you can opt in. If you are someone that really wants to understand what the search bar actually does, then you can opt into that. And so those are, I think, the lessons from YouTube, because I opt in to what I want to learn. And then it starts filling my suggestions with things that it knows I want to learn. And so hopefully, and I do see a lot of platforms going this way, where they're starting to do some of that, so that people are able to get what they want out of the organization and hopefully promote additional professional development opportunities. And that, I think, is what is going to keep people at organizations. No one has that loyalty anymore for organizations, because your organization doesn't really have loyalty for you a lot of times. And if you can provide someone with something different, which could be that professional development, that is a way to build the culture at your organization. Now I'm going to get off my soapbox.
Yeah, we've all had a turn on the soapbox. Cool. So I guess we're kind of we've done like 45 minutes. So who knew why we would end up starting YouTube channels? Turns out we just like to talk.
See, now you guys are going to have long videos and not just me.
Eventually, one day when I finish editing them. So here's a question purely from my perspective to each of you. If you could do any kind of content on your channel, any piece of content that you could just have the resources that you needed, access to the people, the materials, whatever it was, what would you go and do tomorrow?
I would make those super complex, After Effects heavy explainer videos that I was talking about, like Vox and Johnny Harris style stuff. Yeah, that's my answer.
Cool. Oh, that'd be awesome. So we'll see that launching when?
You spoke it into the universe. It's going to happen.
There we go.
I really love Christo's whiteboard sessions. So my dream is to have the Google whiteboard. $6,000 later, never going to happen. But I really love the idea of being able to have students that are there live to learn some complex topics and have that really dialogue and answer their questions kind of in real time. And so I'd love to start doing some of that in the future, but that is way far off on the channel.
I would like to video client meetings and share them with people. How often do we have discussions around how do you tell an SME they don't know what they're talking about, and could they just be quiet? In my meetings, you'll see I say pretty much those words. But I think that obviously we will never be able to video our client meetings, but if there was some way of capturing a very genuine environment like that to demonstrate that, I'd love to be able to do that kind of content. Technically, it's also an incredibly complex thing to shoot and produce in terms of video. You would almost certainly need a crew with moving camera points. So volunteers to fly over to the UK after COVID and shoot some meetings, please. But I'd love to do content like that.
Yeah, I love that because that's realistic, right? That's what people really want to know. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, I'd also like to do live shows like you do, Tom, but I'm the opposite of you. I'd rather have the opportunity to edit myself and edit out all the fumbles I make versus just going live and running with it and then having that be the thing. Yeah,
I mean, I want to do that. Every month I toy with bringing the video down and editing it. I won't lie. Like it irks me that like in this month the color is slightly off. Like that is so irritating. I want to go and correct it, but it's probably best not to do. But the idea of that is very much to run it parallel. I kind of stole from the models of LTT and craft computing of pushing out video content in theory regularly. That hasn't happened, but then also having a live show, not weekly maybe, but monthly, in order to, build some community, which has been nice. And it's nice that you dropped into the conversation about Captivate and ClickUp in our last one, which was nice. I think we just basically bashed Captivate for like 25 minutes straight, which was nice. And then ganged up on my co-host to tell him that Trello sucks. So it was good fun. It's something to look forward to each month and speak to people, especially at the minute where we don't speak to anyone else for large periods of time. It's nice once a month to know that I can sit and have a beer and relax, and that can look a bit contrived if it's a pre-recorded video, to sit there and go, I'm having a beer with you, and everyone knows you've edited the video. Whereas live, it comes off as a little bit more genuine. Whereas, as people will know, there is always a beer on Tom's desk. At least at 12 o'clock.
What are you guys, is there anything that y'all are working on this year that you're super excited about? Or like a really big kind of dream video? I have none, so fair to say that.
I'm actually doing, which just contradicts what I just said, but I'm actually doing a live series with Kara North on Camtasia. We're going to do a 5-part series on that will come out in the next few months. I don't have the exact dates, but that's something to look forward to that I'm excited about.
That's exciting.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've got two things. One is I'm going to start live streaming builds on Twitch of all places, and then downloading into YouTube afterwards, which no one will tune into, but hopefully will make me think a bit more about how I build stuff, because it'll force me to name things like variables and slides rather than just leaving it as slide 1, 2, and 3. It'll be embarrassing otherwise. But I'm planning a series of long form pieces around kind of tech setups. So a few weeks ago on here, I spoke about servers and backups and workflows. So I'm going to do a whole series about how to build your how to build your small electronic empire in your garage as an instructional designer. So rendering rigs and storage solutions and things like that. So nothing ID related really, but if you run a small ID business, very useful.
Yeah, I'd tune in for that for sure.
That's what I'm waiting for parts on. Computer components at the moment, very difficult to get hold of. So I think we're into our last few minutes. I would say sort of anyone in the chat, if you've got any questions, anything you want to ask, do go for it. I'm still trying to decide on servers.
I guess just for people who are thinking about starting, how did you guys get started with your equipment? Like, what did you start with?
Well, for me, I was fortunate because I was working in a corporate environment, and we ended up doing a lot of video, which forced me to research and investigate. Okay, what's a good like I basically had a budget. I'm like, it's not like super cheap, like just get the cheapest thing you can find, but it's not, definitely don't go out and buy super high-end stuff. So I'm like somewhere in the middle, and that helped me kind of find the right like bang for your buck combination of things. So I got at work, it was a Canon 80D, and I really liked it. So eventually I'm like, I'm just going to go and get the same camera for my home setup, and I've just been running with that.
Very cool.
So I started with the same camera actually when I was at work, and then when I set up my own business, I'm a big fan of the Blackmagic equipment. So the pocket cinema cameras, in terms of if you're going to edit your content, unbeatable for the price in my opinion. And then for secondary, something like a Lumix GH5 or something like that. That it's the kind of equipment where you can buy and never really think about upgrading from a YouTube perspective. Once you've got a decent 4K recording, you're never going to want to go beyond that, realistically. And if you do go down the Blackmagic route, obviously you've got the combination of Blackmagic camera to Blackmagic cards to Blackmagic software, so you can kind of have a very nice integrated workflow. I think the mistake I made at the start was trying to piece together a lot of new things. So I went to Premiere, I went to Canon, I went to Elgato for stream stuff, and then none of it quite worked perfectly together. Whereas if you get into the Blackmagic ecosystem, it's a bit like buying into Apple, only less closed, because it does still work with other stuff, but not particularly a budget option. I think the Canon 80D is a phenomenal camera, especially if you're just getting started, or your phone. I mean,
I was going to say that's how I was for them.
Yeah. I mean, every modern phone can do 4K now, right? That's right.
And I think that's so I had asked my editor when I started, and I said, what do I need to buy? And he said, please don't. You want to make sure this is something that you're going to stick with, you're good at. Just use your phone. And he kind of helped with a couple of little settings on my phone and just reminded me to hold it like this instead of like this. And it was my first, that e-learning video was propped up on books. And now my setup is just, I now invested in a Sony, I think this is ZV-1. And my lights, I have one of those standing desk, like it's literally a folding table and a standing desk that I can like move up and down, since I sit a little bit higher when I'm recording, and, just my microphone, and that's it. I try not to make it too complicated for myself, because that for me would be the hardest to stick with. But I think for anybody that's looking to get started, your phone is the best to start with.
That's that classic. The camera you've got is the right camera to start with. That's
Yep.
Don't waste money to get going.
Right.
That's my advice for anyone wanting to start anything. If you want to start a podcast, you can try to start with your phone or your computer with Audacity. And it's like, well, what mic do I use? I mean, you got this, you've got one of these with the microphone right here. Just start with that. And then if you record something and you're like, oh, this isn't going to work, I don't like the sound of my own voice or whatever, you haven't spent any money. But but chances are you're going to be like, okay, this works. And then you slowly scale up, get slightly better gear as you go.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Absolutely. I see we've got a few minutes left, and there's a really good question I hadn't noticed at the bottom for you guys. Has starting and maintaining a YouTube channel helped you become a better instructional designer? Yet, maybe, I guess, is a good add-on to that question potentially, because I know some of us have done a lot more content out there than Vanessa. You pump out a scary number of videos compared to me.
It's just once a week. I promise. And I originally wanted to do twice a week. Thank God Russell was like, let's just start with one. And I couldn't do two right now. I don't know if it's made me a better instructional designer yet. It has given me the ability to have different conversations with clients about the value of video. And right now I'm actually helping a client with her video for her project. And one of the things we talk about is like building that like, know, and trust, and that will build you through your program, and how to talk to your learners. And she was very much super formal. And I think that's more because that's how I speak generally. I just love to keep things conversational because I think that makes big ideas less threatening to learners. So I think it's just helped hone in on some of those. And I think at some point it will help me, I'm hoping, be a little bit more concise about things and just to the point.
For me, I think the one area where it's really helped is with the software tutorial type videos. I in the past, I've watched tons of lynda.com and LinkedIn Learning videos, and I definitely take inspiration from that style of teaching somebody to do videos. And I've always thought like those are really basic, like they talk really slow and they just go through things really basically. But it's one of those things where it's actually it's kind of hard to boil things down to just the main points and make sure at every step along the way where you're trying to walk somebody through how to do something in a software, that they understand where you're at, where you're clicking, and why you're doing it. Like keep that context in there, and always having that in the forefront of your mind when you're explaining things. And if you're writing a script, you have time to really sit down and think things through. But when you're doing things more off the cuff, like I've started doing, it has to be like a mindset that you're going into where you have to think of your audience as having a certain level of expertise in whatever you're talking about, and making sure that you're not losing them, while at the same time not being able to look directly at them and have them have the opportunity to say, wait, I'm lost. How did you do that? So it's almost like you're thinking of you're talking to one of those people that might easily get lost.
Oh, I like that. I think I would say, for me, I think watching YouTube has done more to make me a better instructional designer. I think the amount of little skills you pick up on just watching it, whether it's video editing, whether it's presentation skills, anything like that. There's so much content on there that there is something that can help anyone be better at whatever it is that they do, from being a mechanic to DIY to being an instructional designer. And that's one of the joys of the platform, is you never know what's going to come up in between cat videos and should you buy the latest thing that's come out.
YouTube made me buy. You should do a series on that.
Oh wow. Okay, yeah, that's not I have some intention to stay married for a few more years before revealing quite how much money YouTube has made me spend. So it's been a real pleasure talking to you both. Actually, I think this is interesting. I know we all kind of watch each other's channels, and I think we all actually do watch each other's channels. We're not just doing the oh yes, totally, I watch your stuff. But I think in the chat as well, there's loads of channels having been linked. So there's a lot of watching material for us all to go back to. But I'm sure we'd all kind of invite anyone who wants to get in touch, be it through our channels or social platforms, to talk more about this or anything else, really. Or maybe that's just me and now I've signed these two up for Unwanted Conversations, but that's fine too.
No, always happy to have a conversation with someone about YouTube or anything like that. And honestly, if there's anything I could leave you all with, is just get started. perfect is never going to happen. So what you're doing is going to be good enough.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And we were talking about challenges earlier, and getting views is probably a huge challenge. So if you're afraid of putting yourself out in the world, don't, because your first few videos, no one's really going to see them if you don't really share them all over the place. So don't be too worried about that. And then if you get to a point where you're just, you improve over time and you just aren't so embarrassed by those early videos, you can delete them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like that. That's an excellent bit of advice. So with that, I think we'll close out. It's been an hour. I know for a lot of you it's the morning or possibly early afternoon. For me, this is the end of the day, so I'm going to enjoy that beer I previewed earlier. But thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.